We thank the people we thank the people who continue to live on these lands and care for them. So, so as Brian said, it's going to be a wonderful evening tonight. We have five presenters, and then if there's time left over, we'll do some wildlife sightings after that. And I think we'll just go right into it. So Jillian Coates will be our first presenter, and she's going to present on the Nass Valley lava beds. So Jillian, if you want to share your screen.
Coming up. Okay, so yeah, so I went in June of this year with a friend. We went camping up in the Nass Valley. And so I think I'm going to ask the question of how many of you actually know where the Nass Valley is. This would be a group I would expect a few of you might, but a lot of people don't.
I've been there.
You've been there. You must be one of the few. Anyway.
I've been there.
Pardon?
I have been there also.
Oh, great. There's actually, okay. So for those of you who haven't, oh, come on. Sorry, it wouldn't. There we are. So those of you who haven't been to the Nass Valley, it's just a little north of Terrace. And it is the Nisga'a Nation. So the Nisga'a people actually have the treaty and they actually have the governance of that area. So just a little bit clearer. So we took the Inside Passage ferry up to Prince Rupert, and then we drove up from here up to Terrace along the Skeena River. And then we took a highway up from Terrace, and it's only about an hour and a half over a little bit of a pass. It was just sort of up a bit and then down a bit into this area here, which is the Nass Valley and the area of the Nisga'a people. So this is what welcomes you as you arrive in the valley. And this was one of the lakes along the highway as we were driving into the valley. And I believe this is called Lava Lake. And it was formed because the lava that flowed from the volcano actually dammed the river and created the lake. And more of that in a moment. So as you come into the valley, the first village you arrive at is New Ianch. And we went up there to sort of get a little more information. And this is their beautiful treaty house. They signed a treaty, I believe, about 20 years ago with the government. And so this is their government house, as it were, in their area. And the view from the house across part of the valley. And we actually had come in from here, from Terrace. And sorry, I should have said, I'm happy to take questions as we go along, if you want to ask any questions, please. So we went to, so our first sight of the lava beds was this extraordinary looking area as we drove into the campground. You came into the valley and most of the valley looks like this. It's absolutely beautiful. And then you come around the corner and there's this flat area with this jumble of rocks like this and just whole swaths of it all over the place. This was going into the campground itself. It is an absolutely extraordinary sight. This is lava. And I'll tell you, I'll just get to a little bit more. So this is our first sight of it. So the lava came from a volcano that erupted here. And here's the little cone, Siak's cone. It's actually not very much to look at. But when you see the cone itself, and we'll look at that in a minute. But the volcano erupted here, and then it flowed down the valley here. And here is the lava lake and the dam at the end. And then the lava flowed down this valley and into this area here. It's kind of the pink area on the map. And this is the whole Nisga'a area, and this is the area where the lava spread out. So we were in New Ianch here. And there are actually 4 villages, Nisga'a villages in this area. So the New Ianch, and then this village, I'm sorry, most of them I find very, very difficult to pronounce, so I'm not even going to attempt because I will butcher it. Third village down here, and right down here, which left off the map, the last village, which we know, you might know as Kincolith. So, but that's not the Nishka name, it's got another name now. So that's just the orientation. Up here, a little bit further up this inlet is Stewart, and just a little bit over here is the Alaska Panhandle. So you're right up against the Panhandle and the border. So this is the view of the lava cone, and these are taken from the aerial views from the internet. So looking down, when we drove in, we saw a little sign that said lava cone, and we're looking going, we don't really know what we're looking at. There was actually very little information we could find. And there was clearly, it was nothing. I mean, we're not talking about Mount Baker at all. This whole thing is about 100 feet high as a cone. And this picture, this picture here, here you can just see the orientation here, because if you can see here is a person standing on the side of the crater. So you can see it's not a very big crater. That crater there is this here. And we were able to walk up to it and walk around it and just take a look at it. Again, quite extraordinary seeing all this lava. So the cone itself, the volcano, just a few facts about it. It's at the southern end of the chain of volcanoes that go up into Alaska. It erupted. It's the most recent eruption in the country, only about 250 years ago. But there's no record of it because the eruption in this area was before the settlers came in. So it was only First Nations. They have some oral history around it, but of course no dates in the way that we know dates. So we can only estimate the age, but it is the most recent eruption that we know about. It was a lava flow. It's called pyroclastic, which is the same as Hawaiian volcanoes. It's not the explosive one, the type of explosive volcano like Mount St. Helens. So it was lava that came out of this and flowed down the valley. The lava flowed very fast down the valley, as the cone is quite high up the mountain, and it flowed. As it flowed, it created these tubes because it starts flow, and then the crust, of course, on the surface cools down and hardens, and then the lava flows underneath where it's still hotter, and it sort of formed itself into these tubes, which were like pipes down the mountain. So the lava shot down the mountain, and most of the eruption took place within 48 hours, probably. It extends around 32 kilometers from the source, and most of that happened within 48 hours. So it was an incredibly fast eruption, massive eruption. And the lava beds now are 3 kilometers wide in the valley, in the Nass Valley, and then 12 kilometers long. So it's a vast area. And it is actually the largest natural disaster in Canada's history, which most of us know nothing about. 2 of the Nishka villages were inundated with lava. Over 2,000 people who were inhabiting those villages were killed and buried under the lava. They have some oral history of what they call poison smoke. Some researchers sort of look into what was that, was it gases given off by the lava or other things, but they have that that part of the oral history. And if you do look it up on the internet, there's a story that goes with it of 2 boys who were tormenting salmon, as boys do, tormenting salmon in the river, and it's a result of that the gods got angry and the eruption happened. So yeah, that's so just looking at some of the lava flows. So AA lava, which I assume comes from Hawaiian names. This is this jumbled, just massive rocks everywhere, very, very difficult to walk on. Some of these rocks might be boulders of about a foot in diameter. Some of them could be big boulders up to sort of a meter or more or bigger. But just trying to walk on that is incredibly treacherous. The gray you see here, and you see here as well on all this lava, is actually lichen. It's all covered with a thick layer of lichen, but not much else grows. So the other form of lava that you see here is these flat beds of lava, pahoho lava, and that's just it's flowing smoothly, and it creates this flat crust with cracks across it. It's a bit jumbled, but you can at least walk on it. The only reason this is dark is because there's a path out here to look at some special features. So of course, lots of people have walked back and forth and eroded the lichen off the path. Yeah. So just some more pictures of this incredible racing. Drive down the road, and the road goes through the middle of the lava beds, and you see this stuff on either side, jumbled up all over. These magnificent peaks. We were there in June, so lots of snowstorm. It was really quite magnificent scenery. And so again, the smooth lava, and then where it's cracked is where the only place where you'll see any vegetation. And so if you think 250 years ago is when this lava erupted, and these little trees are all that are the result. And it's not like it's Arctic, and so these trees are growing really, really, really slowly because it's coastal rainforest. So these should be full-size trees by now, but there's just no water. And so the only place that they can grow is in these cracks where there is water and soil that's sort of collected in these cracks, and they start to grow. So all these trees look quite extraordinary because you see them from sort of, as it were, waist high across these lava beds. Here's a contrast with the jumble, and then a big swath of the flat lava. And just to give you perspective, that's my friend Mary waving over there. I was able to go up on a little bit of a rise, and it was big slabs, so it was possible to clamber on top of it, and she just stayed down there. So yeah, so this is this vast sort of 3 kilometers wide, and then looking down the valley of the Nass. This is what we actually were going out to look at. This is a tree hole. So the lava obviously inundated the trees in the valley, and as it came round the tree, of course, the tree was then burning up inside. Some of these holes, some of the inside, you've actually got the formation of the tree bark. I'm not sure if this one did or not. But there's a lot of these tree holes in the lava. We saw 2 or 3 of them in this little area, and that was the thing we were walking up to see. So this is a large several hundred year old tree that's burned here. So 2 to 3 feet across probably, just to give you perspective. But this is thought to be what the valley looked like. It's very flat there in this area, which is why the lava presumably spread out so well. And it was very marshy, so lots of marshland. This is an area that was not covered at all with the lava, but it does just give you a sense of what the valley might have looked like. There is lots of water, but where in part, so this is one of the streams that comes over a little bit of a lava flow here and then disappears. We didn't actually get to see the point where it disappeared, but it goes underneath the lava flow. So it'll come over the surface and then disappear under the lava flow and then re-emerge somewhere else. And then, Some places there's, again, these little ponds of surface water. So there's obviously some sediment here that allows the water to remain on the surface. But you can see it's very, despite being right up against the water, this, you know, it's very, there's very little growing after 250 years. It's quite amazing, quite remarkable. And more of these, you know, little trees. So the Nass River itself, when the lava flowed, it's a big floodplain, I think, is what you'd call it. So the Nass probably, when, you know, as in a floodplain, the river just sort of went side to side across the valley. And as the lava came in, it came from over here, and it would have pushed the river right the way across the valley to the west or the southwest. So this is the Nass Valley. It's a very rich salmon-bearing river. And just so you get a sense, this is standing on one side and looking across the river at the other side. And this rock wall is lava. So you can see here columns of lava. So this would have been lava here that was cooling more slowly and has crystallized into these columns. And then this is sort of perhaps an intrusion. It's a sort of more circular and more jumbledy here. And you can see, you know, it's just really jumbled, but all of this is lava. And it will be going down into the depths of the river as well. So you can see, and this was probably 15 kilometers at least from the campground. And the campground was a good 10 kilometers from the volcano. So you can see how far it's flowed down in a vast area. So wherever we went, obviously, you know, you see very, very clear evidence of the Nisga'a people there. This was the little village. This was not how we got across the river to take the last picture, but this is how people accessed this village for a very long time on this little suspension bridge. And then they have built this very nice road bridge. But everywhere you're always welcomed with totems and other First Nations. The final village, right at the end of the valley, Gingolth. Otherwise, we know it as Kincolith. So this is ocean. You can see it's the tidal flats. And as I say, out here, just the other side of this ridge is the USA. And this is where, going up this inlet, is where you get to Stewart. This is an interesting village that just coming to some Nisga'a history. The Nisga'a people did have a settlement here because they came down to fish, but they did not like living here because the Haida would come across from Haida Gwaii on slaving raids, and they would come across and raid the villages and you know, take slaves. So people came down here to fish, but they did not like to stay down here. But people in more recent years have developed a settlement here. And it's only in very recent years that there's actually been a road all the way down here. A friend of mine went in about 30 years ago, and this was a fly-in only. She went to visit a friend who was working as a nurse up in this village, and it was fly-in. So the road is a very recent addition to the community. And our final, the final day we were there is, I don't think you could be in this area without appreciating the culture. Every village we stopped in, if we stopped to chat to somebody, you didn't just say a hello. These people would stop and they would talk. And at first you think, well, they just want to know who we are and check up, but they just wanted to talk. And they were so friendly and kind and helpful and just delighted to sort of share their community with us and happy that we'd come. We found out that there was this cultural event going on. This was not anything to do with tourists. It was dance groups from the different communities. And it was something that the village, that this is the community hall in this village, they were putting on, and they invited the different dance groups from outside the community as well as within the communities to come. And this was the finale. So this was the dance group from the village we were in. It was a whole afternoon of different groups, traditional dancing, traditional drumming. And we, you know, these folk would sit in the audience and they'd be up and dance and sit down and up. And everybody in the generations were involved. I was just marveled at it. So you can see, sorry, I keep losing my there. This elderly lady here, I believe she was one who came out with her walker, and she was moving around the room on her walker. So we had people from this right down to hidden here, and there's another picture here of this little guy who was probably no more than 3. And all the ages, the kids are out there with their grannies and their moms. I think there was a lady even with a baby strapped on her, and she was out there dancing. It was just lovely to see. It was for everybody. So generally the men drummed and the women danced. So this was a drumming group coming in with some beautiful carved masks and so on. And one of the groups dancing these, yeah. And here's this little guy again. It was remarkable because he was in the stands. He was sitting in the stands with his family near us. And he was a little 3-year-old tearaway. He was running up and down and screaming and all the rest of it, just like 3-year-olds. Once he was in his little costume on the dance floor, he was so focused and quiet, and he just stood by his mom with his sister and followed her around and did whatever he was supposed to do. I was just astounded and marveled at just how focused he was, and all the little kids were doing that. So, and it was just a real privilege to be part of this event, because it was by the community for the community, and we were just welcomed visitors. And then the finale, these 2 gentlemen were the village elders in their beautiful button blankets, and they walked in, and you can't really see, this gentleman has a beautiful mask of abalone shells, and these I believe they're ermine or weasel tails on there. So it's just really beautiful, the work in their costumes. Whenever any dance group came in, the whole audience stood up. When they left, the whole audience stood up. And of course, when these 2 gentlemen came in, everybody stood up and waited for them. It was just like welcoming royalty. You stood up, they came in, they sat down. Once they sat down, the rest of the community sat down. And it was just, yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
Jillian, we need to, oh, good, you're wrapping up.
Yeah,
So,
I'm done.
well over time here, but
Sorry.
yeah. So we'll leave questions for later. Janet and Rich are setting up, and their presentation is Creatures We Found at Low Tide on Pender Island. And that was a very fabulous presentation.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Jillian,
I'm
so.
not sure who's behind the applause, but thank you very much.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that have no idea about that area, and it is a long ways away, but it is quite spectacular.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm looking for the share screen option and I don't see it.
Should be at the bottom. It's usually in green.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
says share. Advanced sharing or multiple participants or one participant can share at a time is what's checked.
Oh,
So did she log off?
yeah, she would have logged off.
I don't see it allowing me to share.
Okay.
Try advanced sharing. How about I click?
Is it just a green button? Is it?
Yeah.
And
Try that.
yeah, nothing's happening.
Why don't you make me a co-host again?
Oh, maybe that's.
Well, okay, I'll check.
Host tools.
Judy and Jim, are you ready to go?
Yes, and we're
Okay.
quick, so we can.
Okay, yeah, just give it one second here. We'll just check.
No, you are a co-host, so you should be able to do that.
Usually there's an option at the top that says share screen, and
It should be at the bottom.
I have that green one. It
Oh,
does
okay.
not
And
allow.
then it should,
Oh, there we go.
Got
if
it.
you click that, it should.
I got it. I got it.
We got
Okay.
it.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yay.
There we go. Yeah, we're going.
Yay, good. Okay.
There we are. Perfect.
Beautiful.
All right. You are screen sharing. Perfect. All right. So, although this is not a tide pool, this is definitely the theme talk right here is, this was one of the signs at one of the people's driveways. So we thought we would include it for fun. Now, this is one of the beaches that we went to on Pender Island. And I don't have all the names and all that, this was a year ago and I'd have to go into all kinds of data. But this was one of our most productive beaches, so you'll see a lot from this one.
Can I interject here?
All you want.
Oh, you betcha.
So it's on South Pender on the east side. So this is if you go to one of the beach access points on South Pender on the southeast side. So this beach, you can actually, if you look across, you can see over to Saturna. It's out of the field of screen. But and we timed it so that we were going to be at low tide. This was our third time to this spot. And the time that we went with my daughter Sarah and Rachel, and Sarah's doing her at the time she was in third year at UVic for biology, and so she knew what to look for, where to look for it, and her boyfriend was there to lift the big rocks.
Yeah.
So it worked out really well.
So Janet just mentioned about
There we go.
lifting rocks. If you look at the beach there, you won't see much because a lot of it is under rocks. So having said that, you do have to pick up rocks to see a lot of the things. And we did take great care to replace the rocks when we were done, so as to leave as little impact on the environment. But you can see Sarah and Janet and Sarah's partner Art. Art was a great rock turner for us.
Yeah.
So here's some of the things that we saw that were under rocks or not. One of the things I like to do is use iNaturalist to get names for things. It's really good and quick. So this is called Mucrinella fusiformis, and it's actually a fungus that's one of the clavariaceae. And I won't go into any more taxonomic detail than that, but you can see it's kind of all hanging down off the rocks in this particular one. And you can see all kinds of barnacles and other things here. So, but this is so we're just going to kind of work our way through what we've seen. Obviously, this is a something, probably a fish of some kind. We don't know exactly what fish. It could be any number of different fish. And that's Rachel, Janet's daughter Rachel, checking it out. She's a big fan of bones. So whenever there's a bone, she goes right for it and starts checking it out to see, ooh, is this too big for my freezer or not? And then over here, we'll start some of the other creatures. This guy is a bristle worm. Doesn't look like much, but that, a lot of them are very, they don't stand out. I am a great fan of lichens, so I always take pictures of different lichens. And in this case, here's 3 of the ones that I found on this particular beach. And you can't see here, but this guy is kind of stringy. It's almost like little bits of string of lichens coming off the rock, whereas these are more crustose. or yeah. Anyway, they're all a member of the sunburst family of lichens, which is why they have that yellowish orange color. And you'll see a lot of the sunburst family on the rocks around the coast. So it's very common. And here's something that everybody always sees, but we couldn't not include it. So that's our ochre sea star, Pisaster ochraceus. And I'm not sure what these little red things are, but you know, they're all over the place too.
And the pink.
And yeah, so there's stuff there. We didn't ID everything, but it was just a nice photo of the starfish. Okay, here's something that you don't normally see. So this is a member of the ribbon worms family. It's Tubulanus ruber, and this is going to look, if this works the way it should, we'll see it's a little video.
It's bright orange. What's that, Sarah?
What? It's just a concert.
How long this thing is. So that was pretty fun to see that. And that's just, okay, so another thing that we saw in the tidal pools was we saw a couple of different cucumbers, and this is the giant California sea cucumber. As you can see, it's under the water, so the picture isn't as clear, and we didn't try to remove it or anything. We just took the picture that we got. It's kind of spiky, and you can see all the kind of little feet and stuff that it uses. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a starfish in a way, but yeah, kind of all kinds of protrusions coming off it. And here's a red rock crab. We saw several different kinds of crab. Again, this is another video, so you can see what this crab does.
Special muscle fibers that are added diagonal, so when they flex, they don't bust out.
It really didn't like being around us, so it wanted to get itself hidden somehow, and it was looking for a place to go, and that's where it ended up. So here's another sea cucumber. This is the orange sea cucumber. And we like to include hands to give a sense of the size of these things. Now here's something that you don't often see as one of the nudibranchs. In this case, this is a fairly common one, but you really have to kind of get your eye out, keep looking for it. This is the Doris Monterey. It's a sea slug, and I don't know what people know about sea slugs, but they're basically snails. They're just like the slugs in your garden. They're snails without shells, and they have a little bit of shell inside them that you can't see, so it's kind of internal, and that's what gives them their shape. And there's many different kinds of sea nudibranchs and sea slugs around the world, and they're some of the most colorful, some of the most beautiful things you'll see. This one is, as far as sea slugs go, a little bit boring, but it's a nice bright yellow. So and it's not quite mature yet, because normally you'd see little antenna here and a little tail thing here. So, but we turned it over so you could see again the bottom side of it. And then we restored it to where it was. Here's another thing you have to look hard to find. It's a long-armed brittle star, and that's you can tell because you can see every fingerprint in detail that that's a young person's hand, not mine, which is all full of scars, and you can barely see my fingerprints anymore. So that's Sarah's hand, and
Yeah.
Sarah, our marine biologist, taxonomic expert. So she would tell us, oh, it's a brittle star, and then I would go into iNaturalist when we got back to the Airbnb and find out the actual name of it. Here's another fun creature, spaghetti worms. There's a lot of different spaghetti worms. And so actually getting it down to species, you need a microscope and chemical tests and stuff. But you can see from the little protrusions coming from it, that's why it's called the spaghetti worm. That's all these little fibers that come out this particular terminus. If I was really good, I would have researched what they do and all of that, but we just thought we'd show some pictures and not take up a lot of time and try to do too much biology. Here is a flatworm. This is one of the free-living marine flatworms. And like I said, it it doesn't look like much. It's just this sort of brown slabby thing.
Is this the video, this one?
No, there's no video
Okay.
on this. Two kinds of anemones that we saw. We saw painted anemones, which is the one on the left. They're labeled so you can tell them. We saw this, which was a little bit harder to find. It was a sand rose anemone, so they're more buried underneath. And sometimes you'll see them and sometimes you won't. And we saw lots of different shells here. And here's three of the common ones, which is the Nuttall's cockle. The middle is the frilled dog winkle, and of course chitons. So there were lots of chitons that we saw. You'll see some more on a rock a little bit later. And we didn't actually figure out what this one in here was, so I just called it some wormy things. Now here is a gunnel worm. It's this big black thing here, black and kind of striped. It almost looks like a snake a little bit underwater. So it's called either the high coxcomb or gunnel worm. Here's a seaweed that or what you might think is a seaweed, but it's actually called sea cauliflower. I don't know if it's edible or not, probably, but I wouldn't just go around munching on it yet. And here's another cool crab, which is not the red rock crab, and another snail. And there's some other stuff in here, but it's hard to see. And then this is one of the common lichens that is not one of the sunburst group. This is a Cumberland rock shield, Xanthoparmelia cumberlandia. And I'm very fond of taking pictures of lichens like this. And to show you how fond I am of it, I like to go right in close sometimes and give you a sense of what all those ceridia, that's what these structures are called, ceridia, look like on that guy. So we go from here and then we zoom in, and it's kind of cool because you can see all kinds of tiny little stuff that you didn't know was there, like all those little things and that. So I'm quite fascinated by lichens. Here's some, again, whoops. My mouse does a funny thing sometimes in that it decides it's going to change slides even when I don't want it to. Here's our chitons again, some whelks, snails, and then I think these might be the whelks.
Or limpets.
And limpets. So, yep. And here's another video.
Yeah.
Look at the legs on that guy. You see, there's all his mouth parts. He can bite you pretty good. Goody. Yep. So I wonder why they call him a rib.
Oh, a ribbon worm, wasn't it?
I think, yeah, ribbon worm.
Yeah.
I cut off the video just before she said ribbon. But Sarah informs us that yes, it can bite you. And Then we had a lovely sunset to end the day. And we'll turn it over to, if there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, the next presenter can carry on.
Great. Thanks, Rich and Janet. That was really, really cool. And it's so handy to have Sarah there to help
Yeah.
identify it, though. That's great.
Yeah, and we've looked other places and haven't had as much success. This was something really, we just hit that place at the right time, and we've looked, even with Sarah, we went to Maine and looked in other spots and didn't have as much success.
And low tide too. So
And of course, I have a whole bunch of pictures from the time we went to Botanical Beach, but that was a different trip, and so we did see a lot of stuff there too.
Yeah.
different things, though.
Yes, very different things,
Yeah.
very different creatures and different stuff.
Sounds like an opportunity for another presentation.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
So, any questions out there? No. Okay. We'll go with Judy Taylor Atkinson and Jim Atkinson on the Port Moody Heron Colony and Puma in Port Moody and Maple Wood Flats.
Yeah, hi, everybody. So this is just a quick, the outcome for our 2024 season at the Great Blue Heron Colony in Port Moody. So we had a successful year. There was minimal eagle predation. So, and even that did not start until late May. And of course, we did not have a heat event until after the fledglings had left the nest. So more interesting for this season was the early date of departure for all the juveniles, and we had 36 in total. The date of departure, June 25th, is the earliest time for all the birds leaving the nest since we've been recording the data in 2015. The minimal eagle predation resulted in the colony not producing any second clutches as in past years. So the great blue herons are able to lay second and third clutches in the nesting window if their first or second clutches are predated. We were also aware of a substantial amount of anchovy in the Burrard Inlet this year, and this may have provided easier foraging for the adults. And in total, we rescued 2 juveniles, one who had left the nest early and one who had survived when its nest blew down during a windstorm in May. They both did very well at wildlife rescue and were successfully released. We do our best to rescue the juveniles because the adults don't ground feed their young. So we always make a good effort to get those birds over to wildlife rescue, and they feed them and then bring them back when it's time, when they have the wing strength.
And purple martins, not a very happy note on this one. The purple martin numbers were down quite considerably. On June 13th, we were at the pier and we noticed that there wasn't hardly any purple martins occupying the boxes at Rocky Point. We contacted the Wild Bird Trust of BC at the Maplewood Flats Conservation Area, and they were also experiencing low numbers with only 55 birds counted out of 100 boxes. Throughout the summer, I counted from the end of the pier approximately 10 birds. And while talking to Wild Bird Trust, we learned there are different methods for caring for the purple martin boxes. And standard practice for other groups is cleaning the boxes in the fall, and then some place them inside for the winter, and then bring them out again in the spring for the arrival of the purple martins. They do not provide any nesting material in any of these boxes, and they allow the birds to find their own preferred nesting material. And that was consistent with the friends of mine that have purple martin boxes up on the Sunshine Coast in Pender Harbor. They've got quite a few boxes there, and their numbers were down again this year. And they also clean the boxes in the fall and bring them inside away from the elements of the winter. and then they put them back out in the spring. And I'd also like to mention that while we were riding our bikes out at the Pitt River, we could only find one pair of purple martins in the nest boxes along the dikes there. So wasn't that great a year for the purple martin?
And that's it.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Jim.
Any questions? Okay, we'll move on to our next presenter. Will be Lee Harding, and Lee will be talking about Alaska birds, animals, and scenery. And Lee, if you want.
I've just unmuted
Okay.
myself. I'm starting up the show and I'm sharing. Oops.
Yeah.
I have to find the share. Now I'm sharing. There we go. Okay, share.
No, not yet. Oh, now we are. Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
now it's
There we go.
shoot. Okay, so this is last summer. This is my brother Jeff. Some of you have seen him or seen pictures of him. This is my cousin Barbie. Barbie disappeared from the whole family about 40 years ago. So Jeff and I went to find her, and we did. In Alaska. So we went to Alaska. Now here's the Beaufort Sea. Jeff wanted to see the Beaufort Sea because he's an obsessive compulsive egomaniac birder, and he wanted to see the Arctic birds in their breeding plumage on the Arctic coast. That was our secondary thing after visiting my cousin. So here's where we went. And one of the things that happened was we tried to go to the Beaufort Sea. We only got this far and had a breakdown. Anyway, this is where we went. Barbie had this giant trailer pulled by a big sturdy red Dodge truck, and she drove us all around all these trails and roads. So this is around Anchorage. The three of us were joined for some legs of the trip by others. This guy is my buddy Andy, from my high school buddy from California, and he lives there, and so he joined us. And this is a marsh outside of Anchorage. So we saw some birds, of course, and some other birds. This is a boreal chickadee. You can see them in BC, but they're kind of hard to see. Can everybody hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So we saw these two loons, Arctic and common. And we saw these nice swans. I'm waiting for somebody to point out the cranes in the background. Nobody pointed them out. I'm sure you all saw them though. Okay. Cranes and swans. Moose, of course. And so then we took the drive up to Chicken and Eagle. And we passed this glacier along the way, saw some more birds, some of the same ones. And then these Say's flycatchers Say's phoebes rather, were common enough. And lots of flowers. It was that time of year. There's the Arctic fiddleberry. We saw some more birds. Typical Alaska scene of the moose and mountains. And this is our first breakdown. There's Jeff underneath. We'll segue right quickly into our second breakdown. This is a different one, although it looks similar habitat. This guy is not one of our group. That's his truck. He's a placer miner. Alaskans are real friendly, so he just stopped and helped us out. Really a good guy, but he also invited us to his placer mine, of which more later. So then we went to Chicken. And I don't know why it's named Chicken, but I think because Eagle had been there before and they needed a name for their community, so they said, well, let's call it Chicken. And then why I'm looking so weird there is I was trying to stand up straight, not really succeeding. Jeff took the picture. So there's Andy, my friend from high school on the Sligging trip. There's cousin Barbie. There's a Phoebe, and there's another Phoebe. So now then we went to this guy's placer mine. So these guys are placer mine. It's very low tech. You know, there's a sluice, some water, some tubs, and he showed us how to use the gold pan. I'll show you a close up of this gold pan. That's real gold that he just got out right while we were there. Okay, moving along. This is the famous 40 Mile Creek. You can look it up on the internet if you don't know why it's famous. And so we just spent a lot of time driving around, and always we saw moose. And then we made it to Eagle. So these mountains are in Canada in the background. That's because the Yukon River flows from Canada into Alaska. And there's the truck with no trailer because the trailer we left in Chicken because it was broken down. There's Cousin Barbie's dog. Moving along, there's the foursome there in Eagle, Alaska, just across the border from Yukon. So what's this guy laughing at? This is another friend who joined us on this leg of the trip. This is Jeff's friend, Jim, from Oregon. So what's he pointing at? Well, he's pointing at these willow ptarmigan. Okay, moving along, there's some stuff, some more birds, juvenile hermit thrush. So again, just driving along, and you see all kinds of things, but one of them on this trip, this leg of the trip, this was going north to try to reach, anyway, that was the northern hawk owl. So this is our third breakdown. That's Jim and Barbie and Jeff. That's the trailer. Barbie was real sweet. She filled this trailer with every kind of food from her garden, meat, moose meat that her son had killed, and fish and everything. So we broke down, didn't make it to the Beaufort Sea. So as a consolation prize, we drove what's called the Denali Highway. Why it's called that, I don't know, except that you can, from the first part of the trip, you can see Denali is so big, you can see it from everywhere along the first part of the road. But we're actually driving away from Denali. So then we saw some more birds. This is long-tailed duck. We used to call them old squaw, white-winged scooter. And then we got the third kind of loon, a red-throated loon. So yeah, lesser yellow legs, solitary sandpiper. And then the eagle is watching for an opportunity. More birds. Now these, of course, another boreal chicken. They're kind of hard to see. You know these. This one is an European species. It's a Philoscopus species in the Philoscopus genus. It's an Arctic warbler. A few of them got a foothold quite a few years ago in Alaska, and that's the only place in North America that you can see this otherwise completely Eurasian genus, Arctic warbler. And there were lots of them there. Well, that's just some scenery we saw along the way. And there's Jeff. What's he grinning at? Jeff's always doing that. He gets these funny looking grins. Well, it's because there's a white-tailed ptarmigan. Okay, more mountains, more moose, more flowers. These Arctic poppies were nice. That's a greenish blue butterfly. And there were some semi-pollinated plovers. The 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that's what they look like on the beach. There's Barbie, serving us moose meat and stuff. And that's how we lived. So that's another scenery. So Sarah, Barbie's daughter, came down to help us out while the trailer was in the shop getting fixed, and the truck also had to get fixed. There were new tires to be bought and put on, and a lot of other work on the. Every door and cupboard in the trailer fell off multiple times. So while the trailer was being repaired, Sarah, the daughter, took us up to Hatcher Pass. Nice little place. Well, there's Jeff. Again, he's looking like quizzical. Jeff always does that. This is what he was looking at. It's a whistler or horned marmot. And there's the close-up of it. And it had a baby. And we watched while the baby went to suckle on its mom. So there were more flowers. I could name them, but you wouldn't remember anyway. There's a pika. That's my best, actually, it was my first picture of a pika. Arctic brown squirrel, little bird. Well, there's our fourth breakdown, not counting flat tires, of which there were 4. So the whole wheel just fell off and passed us rolling down the road. And that's the second time that happened, but the first time was not with us. So the Kenai Peninsula, one thing you learn about birds, or about Alaskans, sorry, is that they love to fish. They're all over the place. But for us, the Kenai Peninsula was all about shorebirds. You can see lots, surfbird, black turnstone, another lesser yellow leg. There were clouds of gulls. These are mostly kittiwakes, not all. There's a herring gull and some other gulls. These are Arctic terns. We saw one or two Aleutian terns. All the rest of the terns we saw were Arctic terns. And we never got a good picture, or even a certain picture of the Aleutian tern. Well, there's a Hudson's Windrow been split from your Asian short-billed vouchers and gulls. Western. And then we went to Seward. There's Jeff and Barbie on the dock at Seward. We're going to take this fjord cruise. We had to get there first, so we saw these little white dots way up on the hill. This is a long ways away with the telephone. These are doll sheep. It took some effort, but we actually found a male up there. And then this is another little marsh we stopped at on the way to Seward. And there was a lot of commotion. The terns were harassing this eagle. Turns out the eagle was carrying something. Well, what's it carrying? He's carrying away a lesser scaup. That's what that is. You know, you can actually identify it. It's still alive as the eagle is holding it off. So that's the group of us there on the cruise. There was just the three of us on this cruise. Well, there were lots of oh, before we move on, sorry. This ice field, that's the Harding ice field. And it's huge. This is just a small fraction. It covers the whole peninsula. Anyway, it's not named for us, not named for anybody that we know of. Lots of waterfalls. These are kittiwakes and gulls, and these are different waterfalls I'm showing you. And there's a whole bunch of waterfalls all at once. Now, what these guys are photographing is the waterfalls, and it was scenic. I took pictures of the waterfall, but nobody, not a single soul on this ship except me and Jeff, of course, saw that there were mountain goats up there. So there's a kittiwake, the black-legged kittiwake. He dives in the water and comes up with a herring. I guess it's a herring. I don't know. It might have been a salmon or trout. I don't know what it was. Little fish. But we saw icebergs calving, more kittiwakes standing around the ice. There's the Iceland gull, used to be called Thayer's gull, but they lumped them all together. Iceland gull now. And so the gull, you think he's diving at the murre. He dives closer, but he misses the murre. What's he going for? Well, he's going into the water. He comes up with a fish. I don't know. I assumed it was a herring, but I don't know what the fish was. So the murre is also diving for herring. And he gulps it down. All this was pretty quick. The neatest thing about the seabirds is you can see groups of different species all together. Horned puffin, marbled murrelet. There's a horned puffin swimming by. Tufted puffin, another marbled murrelet, but this one's in its winter plumage. The others were in the breeding plumage. We have these, of course, on our coast. Now there are two kinds of murres here: the thick-billed murre and the ordinary murre, common, regular murre, what we call them, common murre. And every one of these murres is standing on an egg, except maybe this one, I'm not certain. But every other one is actually standing on an egg. That's how they protect them. There's a common murre. These are red-faced cormorants. There's where they're nesting. Their face is not red in this particular plumage, but later it turns red earlier in the season, but it's just yellow now. But these are red-faced cormorants. What did I say? Cormorants. Kittless murrelet is kind of a turbid water specialist. You see them where the rivers crash into the ocean. Whoops, he jumps up and then he's gone. And this is the only view. I'm sorry for the bad picture, but that was way, way far away. I used some enhancements to even see what it was. This is a rhinoceros orca, and that's our only picture of it. I should say it's our only good picture, and that's not very good, but we saw other even more blurry pictures of it. And then these guillemots, we have them here, all of them down the coast, glaucous gull, sea lions, quite a few killer whales, family groups, seagulls, humpback whales. And I took a sequence. This isn't the whole sequence. I've got a sequence. I could do it like in milliseconds of the whole thing. Diving. I'll show it to you some other time. And this is the Elaine and Bruce showed you the whole deal with the cooperative feeding last fall, I think it was. So I'm not going to repeat that whole thing, but that's the cooperative feeding. There's actually fish being thrown up in the air by there's one over here, there's another one here. There's one there. There's fish being thrown up in the air by the vigor of when the whales all break the surface of the ocean together. Anyway, that's it. That was our summer trip to Alaska. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.
Thank you, Lee. That was awesome.
Yeah, fabulous. Very, very quick. Any questions for Lee?
Lee was actually a minute under time. So you got a minute for questions.
I spoke so thoroughly, everybody doesn't have questions.
Lee, I have one question. I guess Denali is the new name of Mount McKinley. Did you see that mountain? It's like the highest mountain in North America, 20,000 feet.
Yeah, I showed you a couple of pictures of it. I can go back quickly. I think I called it Denali. Maybe
Yeah,
I mumbled.
You called it Denali.
That's Denali, formerly Mount McKinley.
Oh, we can't. You're not screen sharing, so we can't see it.
Oh, do you want me to screen share again so you can see it?
Sure.
Where are we? Wait a minute. I have to move the screen share is covered over. Here we go.
Fantastic photos in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the abundance of wildlife that you saw, from whales to moose to all the birds and that.
Yeah, we saw a lot. Well, we're good observers, Jeff and I. We work really hard at it. Where's the other? I showed you another picture of Denali when we started on that Denali highway.
There it is. Yeah, that's a beautiful photo.
There.
Yeah.
Well, that's from some distance away, not close up like the others. But anyway, that's Denali. So I'm done sharing.
Great.
Yeah, Lee, are the roads particularly rough that you had all those breakdowns, or was it the vehicles you were in, or what?
Roads are terrible, but they have these frosties. We don't have them too much here in this part of BC. They get them up north in the wintertime. The road kind of buckles because of frost.
Right.
Cousin Barbie, well, she's such a dear, sweet survivor, but she's not that good a driver. And also, to be honest, she's not that good at maintenance. The trailer was in rough shape to begin with, and by the time we finished, it was virtually trash. But the roads were, to answer the question, yes, the roads are bad.
Lee,
Right.
can you explain how that wheel came flying off and you had a photograph of it? Like, what happened? Was that the spare wheel?
A year before this trip, the same thing had happened. That was a Kia. That was the daughter, Sarah, my cousin's daughter. A year before, the same thing had happened, same wheel, in almost the same place. And we were talking about it as we left a grocery store parking lot. We heard this clunk up front. All of us guys in the truck said, "Oh, what's that? You better stop and let's check it out." And Barney said, "Well, I'll call Aaron or something, have him check it when we get home." Well, we didn't get home. The wheel came off again, the second time in the same car in the same spot a year later.
I think you need to sell the car.
Yeah.
Or find someone that can tighten the lug nuts. So
Yeah,
right.
Well, that was the thing. Well, maybe enough said for now, but I've never had work on my tires when the guy in the shop that did the work, whether changing tires or changing over seasons or whatever, says, drive 100 kilometers in 3 days and then tighten the lug nuts.
Yeah.
Nobody on this whole Zoom meeting has not had that experience. This is common. Everybody does this. Well, in Alaska, Barbie, her daughter, her son, they all claim never to have heard that you have to tighten the lug nuts. But there's not a tire dealer in the world that doesn't tell you this.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
just
thanks,
another
Lee.
question, if I may ask, Ian, with regards to that amazing photograph you had of the whales feeding. How easy was that you got that? I've never seen a photo like that before. It's brilliant.
We saw that twice on this trip. The first time nobody noticed it. I only determined what it was by looking carefully at the photographs. But the second time, the pilot, who was a pretty good naturalist, the pilot of the ship, the tour ship, there were about 40 tourists on this tour ship. And he saw it from way off and he said, "Okay, I'm going to show you something really special." And he just raced over there as fast as he could, held back, a respectful distance from event. And we watched them go down and come up and go down and come up multiple times over the space of about half an hour. And it was just a real amazing event. But you've already seen it because Elaine and Bruce showed it to you last year.
Great. Okay, well, thank you, Lee.
Okay, you're welcome.
So our next presenter is Jeff Rudd on Mount Blustery, flowers, animals, etc., and photos and information of puffballs. And Jeff's already screen sharing.
We're quick. Save the worst for last, as they say. Is that, can everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to switch my view here a bit because let's just see what happens. I just have to. It has switched view on me. Okay, there we go. So this wasn't this past summer. This was about 8 years ago. We did a trip to Mount Blustery. Now, can everybody see that map okay?
Yep.
Okay, good, because I've got something blocking my view here. So Mount Blustery is up near Lillooet. So here's Vancouver, Hope, Lytton, Lillooet, and this is Mount Blustery. This area here is called the Clear Range. Mount Blustery is the highest peak in the Clear Range. It's about 7,600 feet. And it's a transition area between the coastal mountains west of the Fraser and the interior plateau east of the Clear Range. So let me just see if I can do this here. There we go. This is the view looking west towards the Fraser. These peaks are Lillooet, the town, is just over here. And these peaks are about 8,000 to 9,000 feet high. And that's the view looking east towards the plateau. So it is really, it's high, rolling country. It's sort of ideal for just high altitude rambling. It was an area that was very important for the local indigenous people. There's a number of archaeological sites in the Alpine here, including, oh no, that's another scenery shot, including this. This is actually a grave. And so according to the oral tradition of three local bands, this is the grave of a Shuswap hunter who was raiding a fishing site on the Fraser. He got in a fight with the locals, was wounded, and was making his way back to the Shuswap territory when he died on this spot. So this is at about 6,000 feet here. And it's now a tradition for anybody going by this grave to leave a little gift or a token. So when we were up there, my friend Ian had just got back from the Cook Islands and he had a little Cook Island coin. So we just left that in the grave site. One of the things about this part of the world is you see some animals in the Alpine that you don't see near Vancouver. So these are cows. So lots and lots of flowers. And if anybody knows what they are, tell me. And then this is the point of the talk here. There's these things here. We were walking up and we saw these things over here. And we had no idea what they were. So our first thought was that somebody left a bunch of soccer balls up at 7,000 feet, which didn't make any sense. So we wandered over to have a look at them. And this is what they are. They're Western giant puffballs. And we found 3, and then after a little while, we found a whole bunch of them. So there's another one and another one. Most of them are sort of round, sort of elliptical shape. Some of them are a little bit lumpy like that. But they're really quite fascinating things. I'd never seen anything like them before, and I actually haven't seen anything since.
Jeff, in that first photo where you first pointed them out, it looks like that's actually a slide area. It looks like there's been a slide there.
It's
the topography.
There, that one?
Almost looks like it's been a slide.
Well, there's been a little bit of slide up here. It's not as steep as it looks. And it's got these side hill gouger tracks in here.
Yeah.
Sort of common for interior topography like this. So there's actually a creek in the wet season that runs down here and down here.
Oh, okay. All right. That piece looks like it slid down.
No, Jeff, I don't know if it's in this case. You mentioned that last photo where it's showing those lines. Is that where the cattle move back and forth?
That's a good question. No, it's
'cause-
something else. I'm
Okay.
never quite sure what causes that.
Because I saw it around Karamias, and it was definitely cattle that were making these sort of trails along the hillside.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough cattle traffic up there to cause that. I'd have to look into it. You know, the mythology is that they're side hill gouger tracks. So side hill gougers are animals that have the left leg shorter than the right legs, so they can only travel horizontally across the hillsides. Are people familiar with side hill gougers?
Well, you see a lot in Britain,
Yeah, it
where
should be like a
where the
hike.
where there's sheep on the hillsides. So I've always assumed that it's related to animals grazing along the hillsides. But it's only in Scotland that you'll find a related creature called a haggis.
Right. Okay. So here's how these giant puffballs are described in sort of one of the world's most humorous mushroom guidebook. So he talks about how they're softball to basketball size. He claims that the West Coast form is sometimes abundant in our area after the first fall rains and again in the spring. And so the author of this book is a big mushroom hunter. He likes to eat. He's claimed it's possible to find 30 to 40 pounds on a casual jaunt through a puffball pasture. And there's some other interesting comments about these mushrooms. They're edible, and they're absolutely fascinating things. I've never seen anything like them before or again. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I noted the somewhat side effects on certain individuals with those puffballs. Yeah.
The laxative part, you mean? Or?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
On certain individuals. You can bet London to a brick I would be one of those certain individuals.
And I like the comment that they were kind of like brains, so.
Yeah.
Or a brain. Okay, so we do have time for wildlife sightings if people have any wildlife sightings from the summer that they'd like to share.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I saw something that I don't know about, being not a naturalist, but a admirer. I was walking the shoreline trail in Port Moody, crossing the little bridge over Noons Creek. I looked down under the bridge, and there was a little snake in the water, kind of digging, pushing around little rocks, and as if he were looking for something. Is this a typical, he was very small, like a garter snake, and I don't know if this is a water snake or if garter snakes go into water like this or what. And I was just wondering if someone could tell me.
No idea.
Well,
hi, Sid here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go, Sid.
Yeah, I would think it was a garter snake. I've actually seen them. I once saw one in a tide pool.
Oh,
like
yes?
Little fish. So they'll do that kind of thing. They forage in the water like that.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
And I've been swimming with the snake in near Powell River, and I'm pretty sure it was a garter snake.
Huh. Okay. New information. Thank you.
But as opposed to moving around rocks and that, I can't say I've ever seen anything like that. So, but that would be my guess as well.
Ian, did you know there was a snake in the water before you got in?
Nope.
Were you the
Nope.
snake in the water?
No. No.
I thought maybe Ian had prearranged the meeting and they've just put it together.
No, Deanna and I, we were swimming in a lake called Inland Lake in Powell River, and along came this snake along the rocks and went down the rocks and in the water, and then was swimming around and came within about 3 feet of us.
Wow.
Yeah. Any other wildlife sightings? Oh, go ahead, Catherine.
About a month ago, I saw an American water frog just on the city road. So I'm just wondering whether this is a common thing that frogs on the road. When
And
I
that's
saw it, I'm not sure if it's dead. And then I tried to see if I could bring it back to the Lafarge Lake. But when I got close to it, just jumped away. So
Did it have a stripe down its back?
I don't know. I took a picture and just an iNaturalist told me it's American water frogs. And they're pretty sure about that too.
Where was it?
It's basically on the street of Town Center Boulevard. That's where the Douglas College is.
Wow.
Wholly in the street. So
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. There's certainly been a lot of Western toads around, but to say that, I don't know.
God forbid there should be some Queensland cane toads arriving here. They're all over the road.
Eradication night.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly, I just went on iNat and they're all over the place.
Okay.
Yeah. Everywhere. Como Lake,
Oh,
SFU, Mundy Park, American water frog. I've never heard of it.
yeah.
Were they all spotted by John Reynolds?
That I don't know.
In the same place?
Victoria, is it native to this part or is it introduced?
Sorry, I'm on my cell phone here, which isn't very good. But yeah.
I should submit it. And
Is that right? Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, I've lost it now.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, it comes up on iNaturalist. I'll have another look. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay. Cool. Anybody else with wildlife sightings?
Well, actually, Ian, can I file a complaint for the lack of wildlife sightings I've had
No,
this year?
no. Oh,
No, I mean,
that you had.
I
Yeah.
I mean, I went all the way to Golden Ear Summit. I didn't see any animals on the trail except the people, which were animals, but I didn't see any at all. Like, what's going on? You guys are seeing everything. I'm seeing nothing. So.
I have a correction to make. I'm
Okay.
sorry. American water frogs on iNat, it's kind of an umbrella term for frogs like the American bullfrog.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe
yeah, and green frog comes under that too. So when I looked at the map that had all these sightings all over the place, it was American bullfrog.
okay.
So it's
maybe
like saying a New World warbler if you can't identify the actual species of warbler, I think.
Okay. So definitely could have been a bullfrog then.
Could have been anything. Yeah.
And it was quite big, was it, Catherine? You have to unmute. We can see your fingers though.
Okay. I don't know this big.
Okay, so everybody go like this. All right. Okay. All right.
I should submit it to the newsletter.
Well, you have to pass the editor, so.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
The other they need to select it first.
That's right. Or you could sneak it in afterwards.
I know.
You have the power.
Ian, Stephanie has a hand raised.
Oh, okay, thank you. Stephanie, go ahead.
I guess for wildlife viewings, my sighting of the year was I was just up in Lillooet in a similar area to the last presenter.
Okay, yeah.
And we were up at Fountain Lake, and I'm always taking pictures of insects, and I came across this like huge cricket, and I thought it was a cricket. It turns out it was a katydid, but I was like taking pictures of bugs all day, swimming, enjoying ourselves, and I came back to my towel, and it was just sitting on my towel. It was shocking. And I've never seen one before. So I don't know if you guys can see this if I hold it up to the camera, but look at that. That's my finger.
Wow, that's big.
To it.
Wow.
Yeah, it looked like an egg. I was like shocked, and I actually tried to handle it after, but it got away. That was cool. That was the sighting of the year for me.
Wow. Looks like a pretty big. So, and what did you call it? Wasn't a cricket? You called it?
I thought it was a cricket, but it's actually a type of katydid.
Okay, not familiar with that name. So,
Yeah, so if you see grasshoppers sometimes around the house that are like a really pale green with kind of like a pointy bum, it's not a grasshopper, it's a katydid. This
Okay.
one to me looks like a cricket, but it was actually a type of katydid. I knew it wasn't a grasshopper.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Anybody else with wildlife sightings? No, okay, all right. So, so for announcements, we definitely have got some work parties coming up. There's a hike on September 21st to. Oh, does somebody have a question, or is that? Nope, just a whoopee cushion. So we have a hike going to Diaz Vistas on September 21st. There's work parties for Blakeburn and Como Lake, I believe, coming up. So check out the newsletter, as well as there were announcements that were emailed out as well, and check the newsletter as well. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, October 8th, and that will be an in-person meeting at Como Lake United Church. And it will be Dr. Rob Butler's The Engagement of Crows. And this will be extremely popular. The last time we had Dr. Rob Butler present to crows, we had about 150 people that that came out for it. So because of that, we're going to be asking attendees to register beforehand through Everbright or by phone. And we will be sending out information on that so that you can sign up for it. And BMN members will get priority seating for that. So I think that's about it. So thanks everybody for coming out tonight. And thanks to all the presenters for showing some fabulous highlights of things that they've seen. And good night to everybody.